Assalamualaikum and hello everyone. My name is Cik Wana Syaridah binti Cik Awah Hanafiah. Thank you for being here. Before I begin, I would like to invite you to imagine something simple but surprisingly unsettling. What if a parasite that you doesn't even realize you are carrying could quietly influence the way you think? Not through mind control and not through any dramatic takeover, but through tiny shift, barely noticeable in the risk you take, in the decision you make, and even in the emotion you feel. This parasite doesn't need to attack you violently. It doesn't need to make you sick. It simply needs to exist inside you quietly. And the surprising part is, 1/3 of the world population may already be carrying it. This tiny organism called Toxoplasma gondii, and now I'm going to share how something so small may influence human behavior in ways that are subtle, strange, and sometimes a little bit unsettling. The story doesn't begin in the wild or in some exotic environment. It begins in places we see every day, in our home, our kitchen, our soil, even our pets. Humans can become infected in very ordinary ways, by handling cat litter from an infected cat, by eating undercooked meat such as lamb or beef, by touching contaminated soil or water, or simply by eating unwashed fruit and vegetables. Most people doesn't develop symptoms, and that's what makes this parasite fascinating. Even without making us feel sick, it may still influence us. It only needs to remain quietly present inside the body. Over the years, multiple studies have reported something unusual. People carrying toxoplasma sometimes show subtle difference in behavior, not dramatic changes, not zombie-like transformation, just small but measurable shift. For example, some individuals show slightly slower reaction times, some are more willing to take risks, some demonstrate more impulsive decision-making, and in a few cases, there are slight changes in aggression. At the population level, some countries even recorded higher rates of traffic accidents among infected individuals. These behaviors are not mind control. They are more like tiny nudge, gentle push that may in theory support the parasite life cycle. The story becomes more interesting when we look at the mental health. Several studies have found that infected individuals may experience slightly higher rates of mood swing, irritability, anxiety, or symptoms resembling depression. There are also associations, again not causation, with psychiatric conditions such as schizophrenia, bipolar disorder, and obsessive compulsive traits. But here is the important part. These findings show correlation, not causation. They reveal pattern, not definitive conclusion. Still, the patterns are interesting enough for scientists to ask how can a parasite possibly influence emotion and behavior? The answer may lie not directly in the brain, but in the immune system, immune response and behavior. When the parasite enters the body, the immune system responds not with a strong fever or violent inflammation, but with a long-term, low-level immune activation. This subtle immune response may influence how tired we feel, how quickly we react, how stress hormones behave, and how our brain processes emotion. So, instead of the parasite controlling behavior directly, the behavior change might result from how our immune system reacts to the parasite quite present. It's indirect, it's subtle, but scientifically, it is possible. Of course not all studies agree. Some large reviews found inconsistent results or personality difference so small that they might be explained by lifestyle factors. For example, people who own cats may have different habits. People living in rural areas have more soil exposure, and mental health is influenced by countless factors such as genetic, environment, stress, and life events. So we cannot say toxoplasma causes depression or toxoplasma make people take risks. What we can say is there is a pattern, and researchers are still trying to understand it. So where does this leave us? We have a parasite that lives silently in the body, rarely cause symptoms, may subtly influence behavior, might interact with our immune system, and could be linked to mood or mental changes. Not a puppet master, not a mind-controlling organism, just a quiet passenger, one that may shape the edge of who we are in ways we are only beginning to understand. And maybe that is what makes this research so captivating, because it challenged one of our biggest assumptions that every thought we think, every decision we make, and every emotion we feel is fully our own. Thank you everyone for listening. That's all from me. Now I will open a Q&A session. Does anyone have any question?
Other questions? So, does this parasite actually control our mind?
Thank you for the question. The answer is no. Behavioral effects are indirect through immune system interaction. Small nudge in mood or risk-taking may occur, but no mind control. If you suddenly feel adventurous, it's probably your weekend plan, not toxoplasma. Any other question?
I have a question.
Okay.
Regarding to your presentation, should healthy people worry about toxoplasma?
Okay, good question. For healthy people, usually no. Most infections are symptom-free. Researchers study toxoplasma because it raises fascinating questions about how a tiny parasite might influence behavior, decision-making, or risk-taking. Not because it's harming most people. It's more like, that's interesting parasite than a run for your life parasite. So overall, no, it's not something healthy individuals should be stressing over. Any other question? If there are no further questions, then I will end my section here. Thank you.
Imagine carrying a parasite in your brain without knowing. You feel normal, you live your life, but inside your brain, there is something small, maybe quietly changing how your cells communicate. I'm Rabia Madraseh. My meeting number is 222266, and bear with me for a few minutes. I will talk about a parasite called Toxoplasma gondii. It infects millions of people worldwide, usually without symptoms. But new research suggests it must likely influence our memory, reaction speed, and even the risk we take. My goal is to explain how this parasite affects the brain, but with the evidence show and what the limitations are and why it matters, not with the scary claims but with clear signs. So let's start with what the parasite does inside the brain. Toxoplasma hides inside neurons and can stay there for life. A recent study reported that the parasite releases tiny packets called extracellular vesicles. These packets interfere with how brain cells talk to each other. Here's a simple example. Imagine your brain as busy as WhatsApp group chat. Astrocytes, the support cells, are like the admin who make sure everyone sticks to the rule. They control neurotransmitter, including glutamate, which helps neurons send message. So when the toxoplasma blocks the admin, glutamate levels can build up, creating too much brain activity. So this can affect how signals move across the brain and may change how we react or how we think. With this in mind, researchers started studying on real people. One large study in the US looked at older adults who tested positive toxoplasma. On average, this scores slightly slower on memory and reaction time tests. The differences were small, but the pattern was consistent. those with the parasite tended to be a little slower. Imagine it like this. Everyone finishes a driving test, but some take 1 second longer to react. So that 1 second might not change daily life, but across millions of people, it worth paying attention to. There was also another study from Iran looked at car accident history. They found that infected drivers had more accidents than uninfected drivers, 36.67% compared to 20.6%. The idea is that the parasite might reduce fear of slow reactions. It's similar to what happened in animals. Infected rats become less afraid of cats, making them more likely to get eaten, which helps the parasite spread. In humans, the effect is not dramatic like in rats, but even small changes in reaction time could matter in real life, like when braking at the traffic light. But here's the important part. These studies cannot prove the causation. There are other explanations as well. For example, people with lower income or education might have higher rate infections, poorer test performance. Drivers in certain regions may have more accidents because of the road condition, not the parasite. Health, nutrition, and lifestyle differences can influence both infection risk and the brain function. Researchers like Rosado emphasize that most studies are cross-sectional, meaning they look at one snapshot in time. This makes it impossible to know whether the parasite affected behavior or whether other factors influence both behavior and the infection. We need a bigger, long-term studies in many countries before drawing stronger conclusions. Even so, the idea of an infection affecting behavior is not unusual. Serious infections like rabies change the equation. Malaria also can lead to confusion, and there are also syphilis that can cause severe mental symptoms. Even influenza can cause short-term brain fog. So the basic idea that biology can influence behavior is scientifically reasonable. The real question is how much common might infection like toxoplasma affect us? This brings up an ethical question. If an infection can change the behavior, should we screen the people? Should we test the driver? Or should mental health clinic check for infections? Right now, the answer is no. The evidence is too weak to justify any screening. Acting too early could cause stigma or discrimination. We should wait for stronger data before making any decisions that affect the public health or the personal rights. So to summarize my presentation today, the toxoplasma gondii can disrupt communication between brain cells, and some studies show link to slower memory and slower reaction time, also slightly higher risk taking. But this study, the effects are very small, inconsistent, and cannot prove the causation. Most people with the parasite live normal life without any noticeable changes. This science is very interesting, but it's not a confirmed mind control story. Instead, it's a developing field that reminds us how complex the brain is and how much we still have to learn. My call to action is simple. Stay curious, think critically, and recognize that science is strongest when we question our assumptions and look for better evidence. Understanding how infection influences the brain will require passion, open-mindedness, and responsible communication. So that's all from me. I will open the floor to the Q&A session.
I have a question.
Yes?
Can we get this parasite from cat?
Okay, thank you for the question. So, can we get this parasite from the cats? Yes, but it's very uncommon. Cats can share the parasite in their feces, but the highest risk comes from cleaning litter boxes, not from touching or petting cats. More common sources are either contaminated soil or unwashed vegetable. So you don't need to avoid cats, just practice good hygiene if you handle your cat litter. Yes?
Can we treat or remove the parasite if it's in the brain?
Okay, so the question is, can we treat or remove the parasite if it's in the brain? So the current medicines can treat the active infection, but they cannot fully remove the dormant states that hide inside the parasite. So the good news is that the dormant states rarely cause symptoms in healthy people. Right now, the best approach is prevention, like cooking meat properly and avoiding exposure to infected cat litter. Scientists are also exploring the new theories, especially ones that target the parasite communication with parasite. So, is there any other question? Alright, so that's all for me. Thank you.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh, and good morning everyone. Before we dive into today's topic, I want you to imagine something with me. Imagine waking up one day and feeling different. You are thinking slower. Your mood is not the same. You are anxious for no obvious reason. Your memories feel a little foggy. Now, imagine discovering that these changes didn't come from trauma or from stress alone, but it is actually from our immune system. This is not science fiction. This is the story of Toxoplasma gondii, which is a tiny organism that infects up to a third of the world's population. Most people never notice it. You might carry it for years, even decades, without a single symptom. For decades, scientists believed it was harmless, a quiet passenger, a silent companion tucked away in brain tissue, doing nothing. But today, emerging research is painting a different picture. Today, I want to take you on a journey into an idea that many researchers now find both fascinating and unsettling, that this parasite may influence the brain not through direct invasion, but it is actually through immune-driven neuroinflammation. Let's start with how our understanding is changing. The old view was actually simple. Latent infection means no real impact at all, but the new view suggests that even when the parasite stays dormant, the immune system continues to sense its presence. What does it mean? It means that the immune system will not stay silent at all. And inside our brain, that sensing is done by microglia and astrocytes, which is our brain on immune and support cells. Imagine these cells as guardians who never fully rest. Even the low-level activation is enough to change their behavior. And over time, they begin to release inflammatory signals, which are interleukin 6, tuberculin crisis factor alpha, interferon gamma, and interleukin 1 beta. That is not enough to cause visible damage, and that is also not enough to make us sick, but it is actually enough to create a slow burn inflammation that quietly shapes the environment in which our neurons operate. And here's where things get interesting. This gentle chronic inflammation does not kill neurons. It actually does not destroy our brain tissue. Instead, it interferes with the delicate chemistry of communication. Synapse weaken, long-term potentiation will fade, and our neurotransmitter balance shift. Neuronal circuits start to fire in unfamiliar rhythms, and slowly, almost imperceptibly, Symptoms begin to appear. Fatigue, low motivation, we will difficult to concentrate, occur changes in our mood, altered stress sensitivity, and symptoms that look surprisingly similar to what we see in psychiatric and cognitive disorder. What's even more striking is that in animal study, it is not the number of parasites that predicts these changes. It's the level of inflammation. When inflammation is reduced, the brain begins to heal, synapses will recover, and our memory improves. Function returns even though the parasite is still there. This tells us something more powerful. The immune response, not the parasite itself, is at the heart of the story. So, what about humans? Research in humans mirrors what we see in animals. Individuals with latent infection who also show elevated inflammatory markers tend to report more mood disturbance, more cognitive challenges, and more sensitivity to stress. But humans add an important layer of complexity, which is in individual variability. Not everyone will respond the same way. Some people show a balanced immune profile, which are both inflammatory and anti-inflammatory molecules that rising together in a controlled way. Others show very little inflammation at all, and large population studies sometimes find only marked cognitive differences. And while some research links infection to higher psychiatric risk, and others find no association at all. This tells us something important. Toxoplasma is not a puppet master. It does not control the mind, and it does not determine our destiny. What it does is to nudge to our immune system, and the immune system nudge to our brain. Whether that nudge becomes meaningful depends on many factors, which are genetics, stress, hormones, metabolic health, the environment, and pre-existing vulnerabilities. For most people, the brain compensates. The infection remains silent, but for others, those already standing on the edge of vulnerability, this extra layer of inflammation may be just enough to shift the balance. So where does that leave us? It leaves us with a deeper understanding of how interconnected we truly are. We often think of mental health as psychological or neurological, but today, science reminds us that mental health is also immunological. A conversation between the immune system and the brain will shape by infection, stress, lifestyle, and environment. If there is one message to take away, it's this. Small things matter, and silent things matter, and understanding them bring us closer to understanding the mind itself. Thank you. And now I will open the floor to anybody that have questions.
Me. If neuroinflammation is so influential, why do all infections cause mental health changes?
Thank you for such an excellent question. Not all infection lead to neuropsychiatric changes because inflammation interacts with multiple individual factors which are genetics, hormonal balance, microbiome composition, stress level, sleep patterns, and even early life experiences. Two people can face the same infection, but one may experience cognitive or emotional symptoms, while the others feel completely normal. So it is not just the infection, but it is the person itself, neuroimmune sensitivity and resilience. Is there any other question?
I want to ask, based on your presentation, what does this mean for the future of mental health?
Thank you for the question. Uh, Actually, it means that we must think bigger about the mental health. Mental health is not just in the mind, but it is also in our immune system, in our body, environment. The future of mental health care will likely be more holistic, more biological, and more integrative than ever before. Is there any other question? Okay, so I think that's all for my presentation. Thank you.
Wow, that was absolutely chilling hearing about how tiny parasite can mess up with the human mind. But without going far, let me introduce myself. My name is Nur Atira binti Muhammad Rosli. My metric number is 223434. And I'm here now to show you guys where these mind controls get truly extreme, truly fatal. And we are leaving the human brain and we will dive into the saltwater marsh where we meet an innocent creature that becomes a biological zombie, which called the California killifish. So, what is California killifish? So you can see here that this is the picture of California killifish. It's cute, right? But the killifish, or its scientific name is Pandulus parvipinis, is a small fish. But you know what? It is a vital part of a huge evolutionary wall. Its attacker is a tiny flatworm called the fluke, or its scientific name is Euhoplorchis californiensis. And here's the fluke's life goal. It needs to get into the stomach of the shorebird to reproduce. So, Euhoplorchis use this killifish as a taxi. And this entire process is called parasite-induced trophic transmission, or its short name is PITT. So you can see here in the life cycle, first, the infective cercariate will swim towards the fish and infect it. And then the trematode, which is the parasite, will form a cyst in the fish brain. And eventually, the bird will come and eat the fish. And the trematode will spread through the bird feces. So if you guys don't really understand what I mean is, think of it like this. The parasite is not just hijacking a car. It's hijacking the car and then programming the GPS in the car to drive off the cliff. So what does this tiny worm do to take the control? What does the parasite do? It runs a highly sophisticated. There are 3 steps on how they control the killifish. The first step is the parasite directly causes reckless behavior. And the research found that the presence of this parasite directly causes the fish to perform abnormal, to perform a risky behavior like darting, twitching, and swimming right at the water surface. And when they swim at the water surface, this makes the fish a bright, a flashing target for hungry birds to eat it. And then the second step is the parasite that targets the fish movement and stress center. What I found in the research is that the parasite doesn't settle randomly. It strategically forms cysts in a specific region of the fish brain. You guys might be wondering where is it, right? Where the parasite formed the cysts. So they form the cysts in a rhombocephalon, which is the part of a brain that controls the basic movement. Rhombocephalon is where medulla oblongata is is there. And also, they form cysts in diencephalon, which regulates the stress. And this parasite is actually smart, actually. It knows exactly which part to control to disable the fish. And last but not least, the third step, where the parasite turns off the fish fear chemical. And discovery found that parasite disable the fish serotonin system. And for your information, Serotonin is the chemical that usually tells the fish to freeze and hide when it sees danger. So, by disabling this natural survival instinct, the parasite forces the fish to behave recklessly and guarantee its own death. And now, you might think the fish is just doomed and doing nothing, right? But that's not true actually. The research shows that the killifish has a fight in it. What the research found is an active defense. And when those parasite larvae enter the water and try to break through the skin, the fish immediately start scratching, darting, and shaking violently. And this is the last effort for the fish to keep the parasite out of their body. And plus, the fish knows when it's being attacked. So their body will detect the threat. So when their body detects the threat, it releases the stress hormone as a sign of this infection. But unfortunately, the defense only successful on the skin. The research shows that the fish can prevent initial infection through this frantic behavior. However, once the parasite breaks through the skin and settles in the brain, the defense is over. The fight is lost, and there is no evidence in any research that the fish can flush out or kill the parasite once it has taken control of the brain. And the best the fish can do is to try to keep the door shut. And if the door is open, it becomes a zombie. And I think that's the end of my presentation. Is there any question from you guys?
I have a question.
Okay.
You explained that the parasite disables serotonin in fish, right? If the fish cannot hide, what is the actual behavior result of this fish?
Okay. So the result is conspicuous behavior actually. The fish will swim more near to the surface and it will twitch and it will dart, making it an easy target for the bird predator. That was an answer for it. Any other question? Okay.
So I have question. Based on your presentation, why the fish immune system unable to kill the parasite?
Okay, so why the fish unable to kill the parasite? Because the parasite will create a thick protective cyst in the brain, which act like a fortress actually. And the brain also limits the immune cell access, making it impossible for the fish to kill the parasite without damaging its own brain. I think that's all from my presentation. Next up, I will pass to the other presenter.
So before I start, let me ask you a question. Do you ever wonder there's a rat that doesn't fear of a cat? Like cat and a rat, they're natural enemy. How is a rat doesn't afraid of a cat? The cat couldn't have eat him. So what is happening to the rat? Is it a mutant creature that we've never seen before? Is it an alien? Or it is smart enough like Tom and Jerry? The Jerry inside is smart enough to defend Tom in our real life to be happen like this? But let me tell you something. A rat that does not fear of his predator actually exists in our real life. Do you curious about what actually happens to those rats? Why are they so powerful that they can overcome their hardwired and instinctual fear of their natural enemy? Why are they not afraid of the cat? How they can overcome all of this? I am curious, so I make a research and I would like to share to you about how the Toxoplasma gondii affect the rodents. So the rodents is basically the rats and the mice. So let's have some background about the Toxoplasma gondii first, and allow me to say it as T. gondii. The T. gondii is an enteric coccindian parasite that is usually found in cat small intestine. The cat is a definitive host of this parasite. So this parasite is usually transmitted through the urine of the cat. So what is the target of this infection, which we call the Toxoplasma gondii infection? The target of it is the rats, which are the rodents. The rat and the mice is the most easiest target that will get this infection. So, what actually the rat or the mice experience when they got this infection? They will experience the loss of the fear towards the sins of the predator, which is the sins of the cat urine. Like we know, the cat urine is very smelly. So the rat can actually detect it very easily. But they used to be very afraid of these sins. But now they are attracted by this sin, and they were willing to spend more time at the area that are permanently marked with these sins. So what actually happened to those rats? Why is it a person that you hate so much in the past and suddenly you get so loved in this? It has a reason. It is because when the rat has been infected with T. gondii infection, the parasite will start to form dormant, slow-growing tissue cysts, primarily at the region of the brain which are involved in fear and reward processing, such as the amygdala and prefrontal cortex. So the infection of this parasite will lead to the chronic brain damage in mice, and it is the cause of the behavior abnormalities to be present. This parasite infection is characterized by the establishment of tissue cysts in brain and increase the level of IFN gamma that leads to the brain circuitry interference and result in the behavior abnormality in mice. This was proven in a research paper called A Pre-Existing Toxoplasma gondii Infection Exacerbates the Pathophysiological Response and Extent of Brain Damage After Traumatic Brain Injury in Mice. It is written by Becker and his researcher team, and this paper was published in 2024. This experiment actually suggests that the brain damage of a rat can cause the behavior abnormalities, and these brain damage are usually caused by the attack mechanism of the parasite. And aware of that, there's another researcher team, Bolek and his researcher team, published a paper on 2020 which suggests the chronic presence of T. gondii cysts has triggered the prolonged neuroinflammatory response, specifically the activate of microglia, the brain immune cell in amygdala. So the researcher actually argued that this generalized neuroinflammation impairs the neural cycles responsible for innate fear as a whole, instead of a parasite is specifically targeting the fear of cat urine module only. So here we come with argument. So before we talk about the argument of this first, we will go back to the Baker researcher team. So what they actually found special or abnormal situation in their experiment is that they found that some of the mice are actually having a minor behavior abnormalities. But however, the mice that, other than the mice that have minor behavior abnormalities of this pair, of this batch, actually a lot of other mice that have the same rate of brain damage, similar rate of brain damage with them, having a more serious behavior abnormalities. And this situation was so abnormal that the researcher team expected that this result might be affected by the poor sensitivity of behavior tests and brain compensatory mechanism. Now let's go back to the paper published on 2020 by Bolay team. So this actually suggests about the T. gondii infected mice are not only losing their fear on cat urine only, but also with the predator that are in different, it's totally different with their natural enemy. Like they're not even a non-feline predator. I mean, they are a non-feline predator, like they're not cat or something. So they're actually lose of fear on every single predator, or maybe human, they're not afraid also. So this experiment actually suggests that the reduce of anxiety in generalized tests, which suggests that the effect is not specific manipulation of fears of cat, but a broader reduction in innate fear and anxiety. So let's come to the end of my sharing. In conclusion, Toxoplasma gondii does indeed manipulate rodents' behavior to increase predation risk by cat. It's definitely horse. So this is achieved through cyst formation in the brain, which cause the neural inflammation and neural damage. However, the phenomenon is more nuanced than a simple fear switch. The prevailing evidence suggests the parasite induced a general reduction in fear and an increase in risk-taking behavior. Rather than a highly specific attraction to cats, which this strategy are using effectively benefits the parasite life cycle. So the behavior outcome can be inconsistent and are best explained as a both impairment of brain circuit due to chronic infection. So I think that's the end of my sharing. Do you guys have any questions?
I have question. Do the rats die after getting infected by the parasite?
Yes, it's a big possibility of the rat will die after being infected by the T. gondii, because T. gondii is actually attacking the brain of the rats. So when the brain is fully being attacked and being damaged, the rat will die.
Thank you. I
Any
want
more?
to ask, why is it so important for us to learn about this Toxoplasma gondii infection?
I think it is important for us to learn about Toxoplasma gondii because in our country, Malaysia, that there are a lot of places like the rural area that have a red plague being very serious in our country. So it is important for us to make a research about it, and we can reduce the rate of the red plagues in our country and making our people to be more healthy and reduce the mortality rate of the people to die because of the red plague. I think that's all from me. So if no more questions, this is the end of my presentation. Thank you.
Assalamualaikum and hello everyone. Let me introduce myself. My name is Nur Hanisa binti Mosid, and you can call me Hanisa. Today I'm going to talk a topic about is the ants into the park is to blame for zombie-like behavior. I want you guys to close your eyes. Imagine a quiet forest floor where a tiny ant goes about daily routine, and one day it starts acting strangely. It bends across, climbs a leaf, and clamps down with a grip so strong, dies in place. What turns this hardworking insect into a zombie? Is it because its internal clock gets hijacked by a mysterious fungus? Or is there something even more sinister at play? Now, we will unravel the eerie tale of Ovicordyceps and its masterful manipulation of ants' body and mind. Ants, like many living things, live by an internal clock, a circadian rhythm that helps them know when to forage, to race and to avoid danger. This clock is synchronized with the sun, keeping their lives running like a well-oiled machine. But when cordyceps invades, this rhythm goes haywire. Infected ants lose their normal routines and start wandering like sleepwalkers. Then, at a precise moment around solar noon, they climb a plant and bite down in a death grip. It's almost as if the fungus is pulling the strings of time itself, making sure the ant's final act happens at the perfect moment for fungus forings. Think of it like a horror movie, where the villain waits for just the right moment to strike. So, how does the fungus pull off this tiny trick? Scientists have discovered that cordyceps targets the ants' clock genes like CLK, which controls their daily rhythms. When the ants are affected, these genes are silenced, throwing the ants' schedule into chaos. Even more astonishing, the fungus itself carries its own clock genes, possibly using them to coordinate its attack. It also disrupts the ant's light sensing pathway, reprogramming its internal clock from the inside out. Could the fungus be a master manipulator, wrecking the ant's very sense of time? It's like a hacker sneaking into a computer and changing its programming. Except this computer is the living question. But timing is not everything. The fungus also releases chemicals that scramble the ant's nervous system, making it restless and withdrawing. It even takes direct control of the ant's muscle, causing its mandibles to clamp shut in a final unbreakable grip. Surprisingly, the ant's brain remains mostly intact, so the fungus is not destroying its mind, but instead subtly rewiring nerve circuits and muscle control. It's like a puppeteer guiding every movement with invisible strings. The ant is not dead yet, but it's already under the fungus control, like a robot following the commands. So, what's really behind zombie and phenomenon? It's a two-pronged attack. First, the circadian disruption sets the stage, ensuring the ant performs its fatal act at the perfect time. Second, physiological manipulation ensures the act is carried out with precision, even after the death. So this intricate dance of molecular genetics and physiological control reveals a parasite that's far more sophisticated than once we thought. So a true master of manipulation, isn't it? It's not just one trick, it's a whole toolbox of strategies working together to turn this ant into a zombie. So why we need to know all of this? Why does this matter? The story of cordyceps teaches us that parasites can evolve astonishingly complex strategies, blending timing and physiology to control the host. It challenges simple explanations and remind us to look at behavior, gene expression, and physiology together. These fungal puppeteers are not just scary, they are inspiring, offering new insights into biological clocks, neurobiology, and even how we manage pests in the future. Nature is full of surprise, and sometimes the most fascinating stories are the ones hiding in plain sight. I think that's all from our presentation. Thank you to all for joining this journey to the world of zombie ants. Now, let's open the floor for questions. Any thoughts or curiosities about this fascinating fungal manipulation?
Me.
Yes?
So if the fungus doesn't destroy the ants' brain, how does it control the ants' muscles and behavior?
Okay, thank you for the question. So, the fungus does not actually mess with the ant's brain. Instead, it grows into the ant's muscle, especially the ones that control the jaw. Once it's inside, the fungus sends out chemicals and that makes the muscle contract and lock the ant's jaw shut, even after the ant dies. So it's kind of like the fungus is a puppet master, pulling the strings on the muscles directly to control what the ant does. Is there any other question?
I want to ask, could this fungus affect other animals or even humans, since we have similar body clocks and genes?
Actually, no. This fungus is very picky. It only infects certain types of ants. Even though humans and other animals have circadian rhythms and some similar genes, this fungus has evolved to work with only ants and cannot infect mammals or people. Like, it's really cool, right? How the example of how parasites can be super specialized, but it's not something we need to worry about in our own lives. Is there other question? Well, I guess there is no other question, and that's the end of the presentation. Thank you.